Shabbat Shalom. In our derech, our path at Mount Zion for how we live out our mission as we work toward our vision, we state that we will learn from history. To quote it, we will learn from Jewish history as we continue to innovate in our kivunim, our directions of Torah, thoughtful study, Shabbat, soulful rest, and uplifting musical worship, tzedek, action that has impact, and Israel, intentional engagement with the Jewish people worldwide. So let's learn from history, our own. Rabbi Gary Zola spoke a few years ago about a past Mount Zion rabbi from the 19th century, a person he called a profile in American Jewish courage, someone who addressed rapid change in society with ingenuity. Rabbi Judah Wexler was born in Bavaria in 1833. And when he came to America, he was one of the several unknown, unheralded, pioneering champions of Reform Judaism. He came to Mount Zion in 1878. He brought Mount Zion into the Reform movement. He stayed here for 8 years. By the spring of 1882, the very beginning of the migration wave from Eastern Europe, more than 200 refugees arrived unexpectedly in St. Paul. Wexler inspired this congregation, which at that time had approximately 50 dues-paying members, all Germans, to raise emergency funds and to spend the congregation's last cent, if necessary, in order to help their brothers and sisters. What he said was, the fact remains that Eastern European refugees are among us. They are our kindred, and it is our duty to elevate them to a higher place, to become good citizens of this country. Let no one argue that we are not interested in their welfare. What ennobles one Israelite elevates the other, and what degrades one lowers in the same degree the standing of the other. Wexler's most remarkable project was the establishment of an agricultural collective called Painted Woods in Dakota, what is now North Dakota. Ultimately, the agricultural settlement was unstable and unable to sustain itself, though certainly not because of any lack of effort on the part of this congregation. Thousands of dollars were raised and spent to help the Jews who settled in this fledgling agricultural settlement, but droughts, fires, failed crops, and an endless series of misfortunes sentenced the project to failure after a half-dozen years. Wexler was heartbroken by the settlement's demise, and having urged his little congregation to give until it hurt in support of this settlement, he could not bear to remain at Mount Zion. He resigned and moved to the congregation in Meridian, Mississippi. And there, he fought relentlessly on behalf of public education. Some in the Jim Crow South did not want to use public funds to erect a school for the black children. Rabbi Wexler led the charge by organizing a referendum that ultimately passed, resulting in the erection of the first all-brick school building for black children in Mississippi. The school was named the Wexler School, and though it no longer functions as a public school, it still exists as a cultural center, and it still carries the name of Mount Zion's Rabbi Judah Wexler. In this week's Torah portion, Achrei Mod Kedushin, nearly the center of the Torah comes the Holiness Code. Among the classic exhortations is, "You shall not stand idly by your neighbor's blood." From this verse, the Talmud says, "From where is it derived that one who sees another drowning in a river, or being dragged away by a wild animal, or being attacked by bandits, is obligated to save them?" what one's reaction might be in those situations. If you see those horrific situations, would one do something? And the answer, of course, is the verse from our Torah portion, "You shall not stand idly by your neighbor's blood." And what is common about those examples listed is that the person who helps the other is putting themselves at risk. This is not simply making a donation. Our history and our Torah makes a hard ask of us. When things get challenging, what would you be willing to do? What would I be willing to do? How much would I risk for my neighbor? Rabbi Joachim Prince, who spoke in Washington, D.C. in 1963, right before Martin Luther King, said, "Neighbor is not a geographic term. It is a moral concept." Further, we get a verse later in Deuteronomy, "Lo tuchal lehitalem," you shall not remain indifferent. To which Rashi teaches, you cannot cover your eyes and pretend not to see. Elie Wiesel expands this. The opposite of love is not hate, it is indifference. The opposite of art is not ugliness, it is indifference. The opposite of faith is not heresy, it's indifference. The opposite of faith, once again, I really want that to emphasize. The opposite of faith is not heresy, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, it's indifference. I was on a call with other clergy this week, and Reverend Janae Bates, co-director of Isaiah, said, "When the going gets tough," and she looked at all of us, clergy, "most of you will hide. It's natural. So start figuring out now what kind of person you want to be." I'll pause here because I didn't expect that this was going to be what I'd be speaking about on this Shabbat. We were reflecting in our staff meeting the other day, are folks coming to synagogue now to escape from the challenges of the world, or to be energized to stand strong with clear values in the world? It's likely both, or at times one more than the other, or perhaps you are clear what you need by coming to the sanctuary in person or online. What is clear to me is that we will be asking these questions of ourselves more and more. And along the way, we will be strengthening our Jewish community. And along the way, we will be focusing on our personal journeys. And along the way, I pray we will be doing more mitzvot. And when I say mitzvot, it is in the sense of what Rabbi Elliot Kosgrove defines not as a good deed or even as a commandment, but rather as a positive act of Jewish identification. Positive act of Jewish identification. As he says, doing a mitzvah may trigger a warm wave of nostalgia, a spiritual sentiment, and doing so makes people more Jewish. So that is our project. And along the way, as it also states in our derech, we will focus on gratitude and seek joy, even in a time of great upheaval, and we will celebrate life. L'chaim. In a moment, we are going to be looking with gratitude at the members of this community who volunteer to lead it. I want to share just a few words about one person, Amy Schwartz-Moore. As I've worked with Amy in her presidency, I keep learning interesting parts of her life. That she was a professional dancer, a friend of Yitzhak Blue Greenberg's daughter when studying at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, as a relative to half of the people in this room, which she can prove with a book of genealogy. As a graduate from Yale School of Management in business. The list goes on and on, but it takes a while because of Amy's humility in her leadership. There is a Yiddish proverb that says, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust the sails. There is no one I'd rather go sailing with, metaphorically, than Amy. But who knows, maybe real sailing too. By time you're in the boat, ready to simply just enjoy the breeze, look at the sky, Amy already has researched the weather conditions, done tidal calculations, taken a crash course in rigging, surveyed sailors at the dock about the best route, practiced her taut line hitch, and when something goes wrong, Amy would be the model of take charge, resilient leadership, moving methodically through what needs to be done with discipline and determination, and making sure that everybody has a role, feels included, and is honored in the process. Amy, it has been a joy sailing with you these couple years and doing this sacred work. I know that by doing this in the sanctuary, we tend not to clap, but I invite you to do so right now.